What's up, English nerds, and welcome back to another episode of Craft of Writing with your host, me, Nashy. Today we'll be looking at little mini lesson 2, which is going to be on exploring the semicolon. So what is a semicolon? Well, a semicolon is a punctuation mark that allows for two related clauses to exist in the same sentence without a conjunction or a connective word. So I think the first thing we need to look at is defining what a clause actually is. Now, a clause is the subject and the verb within a line of writing. So the subject is the person or the entity that is doing an action or the action of a sentence, and the verb is the actual action that's being completed. So a clause creates a complete thought or an idea or a statement. So, for instance, in The Awakening by Kate Chopin, there's a sentence, "She would live for herself." And the subject of that sentence is she, and the verb of that sentence is live. She would live for herself. The other word I want to revise here in this definition of what a semicolon is the word conjunction, just in case you're not familiar or clear with what conjunctions are. They're connective words within a sentence, so things like but, and, or, because, any words that connect the two clauses, so the two parts of a sentence together. So again, a semicolon is just a punctuation mark that's used to connect clauses within a sentence. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how the semicolon can be used within sentences. If you look at the first example at the top of the slide here, it's taken from Fun of the Fair, which is a text from Craft of Writing by Elizabeth Harrower, and it's a text we will be looking at in class. So the sentence reads, "At once the solid blackness rang with shrieks and laughter. Only Janet was struck dumb to find that she had been obliterated." So first of all, the semicolon gives us a moment to pause within the sentence so we can take a breath. But we can also see the separation of the two clauses in this sentence. We have the first clause, which is, "At once the solid blackness rang with shrieks and laughter." The second clause, which the semicolon creates, is, "Only Janet was struck dumb to find that she had been obliterated." Now, if we look at the first clause, we can see that solid blackness is the subject here, and shrieks and laughter are the verb. Only Janet was struck dumb to find that she had been obliterated. So Janet is our subject in this clause. Struck dumb is the verb. So now I want you to pause the video for a moment and have a look at the two other examples that are on the slide and see if you can identify the two clauses with the semicolon and then identify the subject and the verb within each example. So why do we use the semicolon? There's lots of reasons, and it depends upon the purpose of your writing as to why you would use one. You might be using a semicolon to connect an explanation to something that you've mentioned in a previous clause. So you might be value-adding information to something that you've just stated. You might be using it as a soft full stop. Like I said before, the semicolon creates a pause so that the reader can take a breath in and out. So it could be used as a soft full stop to give a breath in the sentence. You might be trying to avoid the overuse of compound or conjunctive words like but, and, or. If you use those too many times, sometimes the sentence can lose its luster. So if I went to the shops and got a packet of chewing gum and some chicken and some lemonade and some cookies and some chips, see how the sentence just isn't very interesting? And by the way, that would be the weirdest lot of things to buy from the grocery store, but anyway. So you could be using a semicolon to reduce the overuse of compound or conjunctive words. The final reason that you might use a semicolon is completely different from the other three reasons that I just mentioned. You could be using it as a super comma. So what that means is you could be creating this really intense mood within the sentence. And if you look at the example on the slide, I'll read it out to you and you can see how the semicolon creates drama within the writing. "The tall, barky trees, the roaring, blood-crazy bears, and the rivers that had burst their muddy banks." See how it creates an intensity in the tone, and what it's doing is it's overlapping image after image after image, and it becomes what we call a super comma. Okay, we're coming to my favorite bit of these little mini lessons, and it's time to say, tag, you're it. It's your turn to have a play around with semicolons and see if you can create some interesting sparks in your writing. So the challenge is, I would like you to write a paragraph in which you describe a spooky house. Ensure that you correctly include a semicolon within your writing. So you might want to use it as a super comma, like I mentioned before. You might want to create further depth to your imagery. Sky is the limit, but I just want to see a semicolon used within your writing. So the spookier, the better. And as always, pop your examples in the comments if you feel game. I would love to see what you're coming up with. Thank you for joining me for another segment of Craft of Writing. It has been a pleasure. You are fabulous. You are awesome. Thank you, English nerds. Bye.